Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. At the Bloomington City Council meeting on January 18th, City Clerk Nicole Bolden expanded on Appropriation Ordinance 22-06, which would place the city's police and fire department headquarters at City Hall.
Appropriation Ordinance 2206, an ordinance appropriating the proceeds of the City of Bloomington, Indiana General Revenue Annual Appropriation Bonds of 2022, together with all investments, earnings thereon, for the purpose of providing funds to be applied to the cost of certain capital improvements for public safety facilities and paying miscellaneous costs in connection with the foregoing, and the issuance of said bonds and sale thereof, and approving an agreement of the Bloomington Redevelopment Commission to purchase certain property. The synopsis is as follows. This ordinance makes an additional appropriation to be provided for out of the proceeds of the City of Bloomington, Indiana General Revenue Annual Appropriation Bonds of 2022, authorized by Ordinance 2230, together with any interest earnings thereon, which will be applied to finance costs of constructing, renovating, replacing, repairing, improving, and/or equipping certain facilities for the city's police and fire department, together with the costs of issuance thereof. It also approves of a purchase agreement between the City of Bloomington's Redevelopment Commission, the City of Bloomington, and CFC LLC for the purchase of a portion of the Showers Building Complex for $8.75 million.
Deputy Mayor Mary Catherine Carmichael spoke in favor of the ordinance.
I want to begin my comments the way I ended them at the last meeting of the ad hoc committee meeting on this topic. And that's just to say I'm concerned about how this discussion about a pretty simple question, whether or not to buy the additional Showers property and unite public safety in the most of the other city departments under one roof, has kind of devolved into an us versus them approach to the issue. We are us and we are them, all city employees with the exact same mission to serve our residents. Our specific jobs differ, but the overarching goal is shared by every employee in every department. And many units besides police and fire are directly involved with public safety, with protecting and preserving public safety. Community and Family Resources Department, Public Works, Utilities, Information Technology Services, for example. I hope that with this purchase we will realize our hope to better integrate public safety services and, yes, achieve a better sense of shared community within our own organization. So the idea is to open up and connect the spaces that are the current City Hall that we're in at this moment and the CFC portion of Showers. It is our hope that there would be plenty of opportunities throughout any given day to work together. The purchase is focused on just what we pledged earlier, providing enhanced facilities for public safety activities now and room for expanded police and fire operations in the future so that we aren't back at this drawing board in a few years.
Council Member Steve Volan read a report from the Committee on Public Safety. Council Member Ron Smith asked Volan if the city acquired the Showers building and rented it out to tenants, what would happen with that revenue? Volan responded that he did not know for sure, but he would be open to receive an estimate from the mayor's office.
I want to thank everybody for that report, and that work is really fantastic. The one question I asked, and I don't think I understood it to be answered, but maybe it was. If the city acquires the Showers building and then has tenants, what happens to the revenue from the tenants? Does it go back to reduce the bond? What happens to that?
That's a very good question. That, of course, I'm not going to be the final answer on. The administration will need to answer it, and they may have an answer now, but I would start by saying that I share your interest in a ballpark figure as to how much rent there might be and how much it might be able to defray the cost of acquiring the building. I know that the leases, from discussions with the administration, I know that the leases expire at varying times. Some last more than others. I suppose they've been a little uncomfortable to talk about the exact, lease amounts. So there's got to be a sensitive way that we can get a sense of how much there might be there. But ultimately, I think it's a question that I would like the administration to answer: is can we get a ballpark figure of how much the cost of the building will be reduced because a significant portion of it is still under lease, and how much we can expect over, say, the life of the bond that will cost. If Deputy Mayor Carmichael has ability to answer that now, that'd be great. But otherwise, I'd be happy to see something by next week.
The council unanimously voted to postpone the decision until next week. At the Monroe County Public Library Board of Trustees meeting on January 18th, Director Greer Carson gave updates on the new Southwest Branch construction.
The drywall hanging and finishing continues throughout the building. The exterior limestone veneer installation is nearly complete, and I have to say looks fantastic. The rooftop units are finally in place, and the painting in the garage as well as the interior bathroom tile installation has begun. The electrical switch gear from Duke has been delayed due to a supplier issue, and this impacts the heating of the interior of the building and the permanent installation of the elevator and other mechanical pieces which require dedicated electrical. So we are currently, and have been for some time, using portable heating units in order to stay on schedule with that drywall installation, among some other things.
Carson asked the board to approve of the recent change orders that have come up during the construction.
The change orders. So first, the storm and sanitary tie-ins need modified. This change order is for the materials, labor, and some additional rock excavation needed to move those tie-ins to the main drainage systems on the northeast side of the building. That is the most expensive change order out of all of these. Then we have a minor modification to our flooring plan in the lobby, which sits right outside of the large programming room, where we prefer to have built-in carpet rather than laying a physical carpet down for obvious safety reasons. We need to add blocking to the walls in the staff work area so that we can eventually hang coat hooks and other wall-mounted storage solutions. And we're looking to add a motorized roller shades for the windows in the large programming rooms. The traditional pull shades for windows like this are actually being phased out due to an industry shift to safer blind and shade pulls, which don't present as much of a hazard to children. So our options are to go with a crank shade, a battery-powered shade, or a hardwired motor shade. And we would prefer the hardwire motor shade for both durability and aesthetic purposes. And then finally, we need to add a bulkhead on the south side of what we're calling the quiet reading room. It's going to hide a support beam that's in that space and therefore make that part of the ceiling look cleaner and more consistent with the rest of the space.
Board Secretary Kari Essary asked what the total of the change orders amounted to. Carson responded that they have the funds for the changes, however, they will need to start being more selective moving forward.
So we have the money to do this. This is a $45,714 set of change orders. This brings our grand total of change orders to $432,920. So we're still within our contingency area, but I will say now that we need to start looking carefully at each individual change order going forward as we get closer to opening the branch, because we've certainly had a lot of them. I don't expect any more rock excavation related change orders after this, but there will certainly be some other minor things. Yeah. There were a couple of pieces we looked at doing recently in the parking lot that we're probably going to defer on, just because we're at that point where we say that might be a luxury versus that's an essential thing like this storm and sanitary tie-in piece. So that is certainly the mentality we want to have at this point.
The board approved the change orders unanimously. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
Do you know that thousands of children go without school supplies every day? Teachers Warehouse is a 100% volunteer-powered organization. We service the educational and creative needs of students in Monroe, Brown, Greene, Lawrence, and Owen counties by distributing school supplies free to the teachers. Teachers Warehouse is composed of 7 rooms filled with books, pencils, paper, and even tools to motivate students. If it's in a classroom, we'll supply it. To donate new or gently used school supplies or volunteer, give us a call at 812-929-7522 or email us at contact@teacherswarehouse.net.
Welcome back to CATSweek. On January 18th at the Monroe County Commissioners meeting, Assistant Director of the Planning Department and Floodplain Administrator Tammy Bierman asked the commissioners to approve an amendment to Zoning Chapter 803. She said the amendment would clarify the new manufactured home replacement requirements.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Yes, we're presenting Chapter 803 text amendments. These are just technical fixes, such as like amending the language to legal pre-existing non-conforming structures, making sure that they comply with the requirements of Chapter 808, which is our flood damage prevention chapter. This is kind of required for us to stay in the National Flood Insurance Program. And so we want to make sure that if a house is damaged in one of those types of areas, that we are compliant with the state requirements and federal requirements. Additionally, we're adding text to remove a reference into Chapter 833, which is the fringe. It's a old City of Bloomington ordinance language that we would like to remove, so that when someone goes to remove and replace a manufactured home or a mobile home, that they are replacing it with a manufactured home. Mobile homes can only be replaced technically within a mobile home park at this point due to safety standards. So we're just kind of cleaning up the language of Chapter 803.
During public comment on the ordinance, Monroe County resident and Redevelopment Commission member Randy Cassidy asked the county to increase their public outreach about the floodplains and encouraged the county to identify and notify the public personally.
In regards to the aspect of the text amendments and making changes accordingly, when we're looking at this situation, staying in the National Flood Insurance Program for those individuals that have had homes in there for a significant period of time and that's where they live, it's imperative that they have the ability to be in the flood insurance programs. There's additional items that have been added in which can make it a constraint on the homeowners that live and have purchased these. And if something comes in during a natural disaster, the time frame to be able to help them to get back, as Tammy, being the floodplain administrator in Monroe County, knows, there's a certain area that is defined accordingly as the flood hazard area, also as the special flood hazard area. The individuals that are in those areas realistically may not even know they are there. And the onus of putting this on the individual to say how, as we say, very few people even look at the meetings. They know, but the onus is on them to find out. In order to try to be the best in the public aspect, would it not be to a benefit to identify which homes they are and let those property owners know exactly and what the circumstances are? Because by adding additional text amendment, putting it where nothing can be done, an individual that happens to be in those situations, they don't even know. And flooding is something that has occurred. I mean, I'm sure that Colton Bowe, when he went down Dodds, did not intend on dying that night when the flood came through. So the identification of these and being able to allow them to be rebuilt or moved into the safety is paramount for the public safety and for the individuals in our county. Because the last thing we want to do is and I'll use May's Greenhouse as an example. I don't know all the circumstances, but I know given the area, they're still damaged and a truck ran off of them. So just those aspects of, let's identify those individuals before we pass something that then puts the onus on those individuals that are probably least prepared to address it at the time it happens, because a significant amount of these people would be out of a home and the main objective is get it repaired. And if it goes through a process, so I'm sorry, you can't rebuild, you can't do this. It'll take 9 to 12 months. We just dislocate those that already have a home that has a problem. So I appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you.
Commissioner Lee Jones said that some properties have been experiencing flooding due to development further upstream.
Yes, I would like to point out that frequently people have located in areas that did not flood. and seemed perfectly safe. And then as more and more development occurred upstream from them, they started flooding. So in a way, I understand that there's a difference between just the areas that have started flooding due to development and the flood hazard plain. But it does seem unfortunate that something that people did not ask for ever could cause them to actually lose their home.
Commissioner Julie Thomas commented on the ordinance as well.
I appreciate the point that Commissioner Jones just made. Some of this is about climate change, but a lot of this is also about development elsewhere, even development in the city. And we're getting stormwater runoff that's not contained appropriately from the city. So this is a very serious topic, and I appreciate all the hard work Ms. Bierman has put in so far to her research and ensuring that this code gets updated.
The commissioners unanimously approved the amendment to the ordinance. Following the vote, Bierman gave a presentation on the National Flood Insurance Program.
So the National Flood Insurance Program, participation in this is based upon an agreement between local communities and the federal government that states that if a community will implement and enforce measures to reduce future flood risks to new construction in special flood hazard areas, the federal government will make flood insurance available within the community as a financial protection against flood losses. And this is kind of a three-arm approach. There are special flood hazard area maps that are provided. In fact, the state of Indiana is very much into updating these maps, and I'll get into that in a moment. The other prong of this is the availability of flood insurance for these areas, and then also regulations, which is what I'm mostly involved in as floodplain administrator for Monroe County. And this deals with permitting and enforcement. And so this diagram below, just as a review of what a flood hazard area is, it's considered the 1% annual chance floodplain. They used to call this the 100-year floodplain, but we're seeing sometimes this is occurring more than within that time frame. So there are kind of delineated between two portions. There's the regulatory floodway. That any development within that area would require both state and local floodplain permits. And then there's the fringe areas, which aren't quite as considered as dangerous. Those would only require a local flood development permit to be able to do some development within there.
Commissioner Julie Thomas recommended that residents consider getting flood insurance and shared some personal experience she has had.
No, I do recommend that anyone who lives in an area that's prone to flooding, whether it's on a creek or near a creek or in an area like that, that they consider getting flood insurance. About 15 years ago, we had a microburst in the summer. It was first week of June. I remember that. And our neighborhood flooded terribly. We had people trapped. We had my neighbor across the street lost a barn. The water wasn't deep, but it was moving fast. And they lost a barn. And we were the only one in our neighborhood that had flood insurance. And we're the only ones that didn't have any damage. So it's serious stuff. And I know we lost a couple bridges, and it was pretty impressive to see it. So I do recommend that folks consider it, especially I'm hopeful that there's going to be more revisions to the cost, because it is pretty high, to make it more affordable for folks, because your regular homeowners insurance, renters insurance will not cover you in a flood. So just want to put the word out, and I do want to thank Ms. Bierman for her hard work and for getting this out, and I do encourage you to record something on your PowerPoint, and we can put it on our website, and folks can see what's going on and can look at those maps and make good decisions for themselves.
For more information, Bierman said residents can reach out to her with any questions. At the Richland Bean Blossom School Board meeting on January 17th, the board considered updating their contingency learning and safety plan. Superintendent Dr. Jerry Sanders gave some background on the plan.
ESSER requires school corporations to update their in-person instructional plans every 6 months. The plan that was presented to you tonight, you approved back last summer. We have not made any changes to that plan, but we are basically asking the board to reaffirm that plan tonight. Knock on wood, I think things are going pretty well. I just pulled the attendance percentage for first semester today, and at the preschool is 94.3%, EPS 94.2%, at EIS 94.9%, and at the junior high 94.5%, and at the high school 93.5%. So, you know, like I said, knock on wood, but we would just like to ask the board to reaffirm that same plan.
And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
I will not be another statistic.
I will fight for myself.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the January 17th meeting of the Bloomington Board of Public Works, the board heard a resolution that would update the Community Special Events application. City Attorney Larry Allen walked the board through the resolution.
This is just to update the special event application to incorporate reference to the policy and procedure for private art in the public right-of-way that you all had approved on December 20th of last year. We've made some changes to the application, and I think there were some questions in the work session that I also want to address just really briefly. So just so everyone is aware, the material changes to the application occur in sections 3 and 6. Again, so the type of potential special event includes now just a reference to art in the right-of-way, just to trigger staff so that they know who to route it to and how to apply the policy. In Section 6, it mirrors some aspects of the policy to make sure that staff is checking those parts of the policy, and then also to make sure that the policy itself is attached to the application, which we'll make sure when it's uploaded online that the art policy is attached. The one question that was brought up in the work session that I'd like to address briefly was about the time limit for how long the art stays. And just upon reflection of the board's perspective, I think that that's right. In the description of the event itself, where it's listing the time frame for that event to last, I think a fair interpretation of that would be to include the time that the art would last, because the private party would be expected to maintain that. We'd be happy always to revisit this if in practice that presents a problem and clarify it, but that's how I think it would work in that. So I thank you for your thoughts about that. I'm sorry that I kind of shot off the hip there, and so I appreciate the perspective. I'm happy to take any questions that the board has.
The board approved the resolution unanimously. Next, civil engineer for the city, Alex Gray, presented a request from JDH Contracting for temporary lane and sidewalk closures on North Monroe Street and West Cottage Grove Avenue from January 18th through February 3rd.
And I'm here because JDH Contracting is working on the Bloomington Digital Underground project, and they're requesting lane and sidewalk closures to finish out the project. Their work is going to be from Crestmont Park, Mills Pool, Tri-North Middle School, Teachers Warehouse, and Butler Park in that surrounding area. And they're going to put 3 sections of conduit in each bore that they do, and one of them will have active fiber, the other 2 are for future developments.
The board approved the sidewalk closure unanimously. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.